My father's uncle was a Catholic priest in a small town, and at that time he was also a mayor of that town. And in order to keep the people towing their mark in that town, they were taking hostages. So they took my great uncle as a hostage. They came to church while he was celebrating Mass, and right after the Mass they took him to concentration camp. Then I don't remember how long he was there, but when they finally released him, he was just skin and bones. And he told my father how they tortured them. They would pour hot tar on the road and they made the prisoners roll in it. And well, he just came home to die. That's what happened to him. He wasn't allowed to have rosary, so he made rosary out of bread. He made little balls out of bread and made himself a rosary. So there were a lot of things happening like that. Or they would let faucet of water, faucet above the head, drip on the prisoner's head slowly to drive them crazy. And also they made lampshades out of Russian skull heads. When they caught Russian soldier, I guess they were fighting United States and Russia, because at that time the Russia, England and United States were our allies. And the Czechs, the Germans did not accept any Czech men into the military because they knew they couldn't trust them, they would run on the other side. So Czech fellows, volunteers, ran away to England and joined the forces there, and they formed a Czech brigade. And after the war they came back to Czechoslovakia. Some of them were pilots, and one of them was from Plzen, one of the pilots. And our city, Plzen, was bombed because of Škoda factory that built all the machinery or planes and tanks for the war, so that everything was sent to Germany. And that's why they had to bomb Škoda factory or railroad. So the railroad would slow the transport to Germany with the products they made here. So we were bombed by British pilots and American pilots. And one of the pilots also was from Plzen. He told us that after the war was over, they had an aerial show in Plzen, and he told us, I am the one who came to bomb Plzen. I volunteered because I knew the location of the factory, because the Germans built a Mack factory on the other side of Plzen, so the pilots would be fooled and bomb the wrong one instead of the right one. But they couldn't detour the river. So the pilots went by the river and they hit the right factory. But they were very careful that they didn't do too much damage to the people, just the factory. So it was good that, people understood. It was good that he was Czech from Plzen to come and bomb this place, because he knew it the best way when to release the bomb and all that stuff. Yeah. So that was another interesting thing.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there is anything else that was important.
Yeah.
and trying to think that also Czechs held together. I mean, they would not squeal on one another if they were true Czechs, because sometimes you didn't know whether they were collaborators with Germany. And but we had good kids in school. And then one day, one of the students, our windows were opened, and one of the students from the second floor of the building saw a German soldier walking on the sidewalk next to the building, so they spit on him, spit on their helmet. And the soldier noticed it, so he ran quickly in the building. Who did that? Who did that? No student would say anything. No, nothing. Then we were forbidden to celebrate our national holidays. We had a professor, art professor, who would, every time we had a national holiday, he would come to the classroom, open the door, and say, "What date is today, students?" And we always shouted, 28. říjen. That was a date when Czechoslovakia was born, was created in 1918. And
Wilson.
yeah, with President Wilson in Independence Hall in Philadelphia. That's when our President Masaryk and American President Wilson signed the agreement and made Czechoslovakia. Because before, Czechia was under Austria, Slovakia was under Hungary. So then they became independent in 1918.
Okay.
Then 20 years later, they lost their freedom, 1938. And then 20 years later, 1958, I believe, almost 20 years later again, then the Russians got in Prague. And then, I'm thinking of something else.
Or
I don't know.
you did all right. You did all right.